In 1794, the Wolverhampton-based botanist and farmer Mr. William Pitt, in an article on the subject of weeding or the improvements to be effected in agriculture by the extirpation of weeds, wrote, "Fritillaria meleagris, this very curious and rare flower adorns in great profusion some meadows in the parish of Weighton Aston, Staffordshire." Pitt didn't say exactly which meadows in Weighton Aston he meant, but it is widely assumed that he is referring to these low-lying Mottey Meadows tucked away on the western edge of Weighton Aston, just over half a mile from the village centre. It is assumed simply because over 200 years later, Fritillaria still grow here, but sadly no longer in great profusion. The flowers are now very rare in the wild, and especially so at these northerly latitudes. The Royal Horticultural Society say the Snake's Head Fritillary is one of the most exquisite jewels in the treasure house of British wildflowers, and few would disagree. The Latin name is Fritillaria meleagris. Fritillaria comes from the Latin word fritillus, a dice box, from the spotted markings on the flowers, which are suggestive of a dice board. The name meleagris means spotted like a guinea fowl. The equally beautiful white ones have an almost luminous quality. The pair are Britain's only native fritillaries. Mottey Meadows are around 100 acres of traditional, species-rich floodplain meadows of a type that were once common in England but have now become very rare. As meadows of this type go, they are unsurpassed. About 1.5 kilometres long and half a kilometre wide, they flourish alongside a brook that forms the ancient parish boundary. Floodplain meadows are part of a quintessential English landscape that would have been found throughout our river valleys 100 years ago. Throughout the spring and early summer, they are awash with wild flowers and waving grasses, humming with the insects that depend upon them. With over 200 species of flowers, grasses and sedges, they provide a vibrant and beautiful spectacle that was once taken for granted but has now all but disappeared. Some 95% of England's similar traditional floodplain meadows were lost to the plough or were improved during the 20th century. Today only 1,500 hectares remain. Some 30 or so years ago, just in time and perhaps partly because of the fritillaries, these Staffordshire meadows were rescued from a similar fate by the government agency, the Nature Conservancy Council, which later became Natural England. With special care taken by Natural England, numbers of fritillaries have increased year by year, from around only 20 in 1980 to nearly 300 today. The meadows are now a national nature reserve. Natural England's aim is to encourage people to enjoy and get involved with their surroundings. To this end, Mottey's manager, Mel Brown, leads expeditions of school children and adults to visit the meadows, to see the fritillaries in spring, and to enjoy the delights of the meadows when they are in full flower in summer.
Trophic grassland 4, which is made up of 2 key species, one of which is great burnet.
Mottey Meadows are extensively studied as part of an ongoing research project by a group known as the Floodplain Meadows Partnership, who want to monitor, protect and encourage the restoration of wildflower-rich floodplain meadows in the UK.
Well, the Floodplain Meadows Partnership was set up in 2008 as a result of a group of organisations who came together, who were interested in the conservation of the Floodplain Meadows habitat because it's so special and so rare. People like Natural England, the Environment Agency, the Field Studies Council, Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, the Wildlife Trust, the RSPB, and it's all hosted at the Open University. We're all very keen to see that the grasslands group at the Open University, the information they'd learnt over the past 20 years, could be shared with people that wanted to know. Obviously, Mottey Meadows is special simply when you go out there, and it's a fantastic array of flowers and grasses. But we also know that they're one of only 5 sites in the UK that are designated at an international level, so they're important across Europe. One of our objectives is to survey all of those 5 sites that are internationally important in the UK. Obviously, Mottey is one of those, and we've been surveying down there annually since 2008, exactly the same locations. And what we've found from that work is that although the plant communities across those 5 sites are reasonably similar, the sites are all quite different as well. So Mottey is the only site, and is out of those 5, and it is in fact the largest one that we know of in the UK, that is what's known as a groundwater dependent ecosystem. So all the other big floodplain sites are on big open lowland river systems, and their water source comes from overland flooding. With Mottey, it's on the headwaters of a tiny little brook, and its water source comes from under the ground, so it's groundwater fed. That means it's very, very stable. Its plant communities don't change very much, even though there might be lots of flooding in the rest of the country. It doesn't suffer in the same way as some of those bigger systems. It's also, its landscape is very different from the other sites. So it's quite a big site, but it's a series of small fields that are bounded by hedgerows, whereas if you go to the other big floodplain sites, they're big open systems with no boundaries, no hedgerows in between them. So its nature is very different. And those things make it really special. I mean, it's a fantastically rich site anyway. It's one of the richest of all of those 5 sites that we monitor. It's a major research site for us, so it should be seen as a nationally important research site for this habitat as well. And I think those 3 things make it very special. There's also a very, very strong relationship between how it's managed now and its historical management. There's a very good relationship between the Natural England and the previous landowners who used to manage the site, and I think that also makes it really special.
Based around the Wheaton Aston area, the group Friends of Mottey Meadows support the staff employed by Natural England with the promotion and development of Mottey Meadows National Nature Reserve.
Friends of the Mottey Meadows, how long have you been?
It's been in existence, Ray, about 5 years, I would think. It initially started, I mean, I've known Tim Collishaw for about 30 years, I guess, because of my dad's field. And when Natural England became Natural England from English Nature, I think it opened up the perspective of them wanting to link in with the community more than what he did in the past. It was rather private, and people didn't know whether they could go there or not, or could you get a permit or couldn't you. And Tim said, well, we formed a friends group at Wren's Nest, Dudley. Obviously it's an urban location and a much bigger group, but they're on a specific site. And cutting a long story short, we went there one night to a quiz night. It was the very first time that Chris and I met Mel. And so we had a meeting then at our house shortly afterwards, which is just over 5 years ago. And we said, right, we'd set up a friends group, Friends of the Mottey Meadows. And really that's how it started.
If you are planning a visit and want to join in a guided Natural England walk, then booking is essential. Contact the Mottey Meadows team through the Natural England website.
So you don't tread on any whilst taking photos. So if anybody wants a picture of this, we've got a clump of purples here.
If you want to come at other times, then a permissive path across the meadows is open when the meadows are at their best, between the 1st of June and the 31st of August. However, please note, these are hay meadows, and the hay may be cut at any time from late June, so check with Natural England before travelling. A mown meadow can be a tad disappointing. As the permissive path is a little over half a mile from Wheaton Aston and is accessed only from a couple of muddy unmade lanes, if you are travelling by car it is probably best to park in the village and walk from there. Wheaton Aston has a couple of pubs for refreshment. Oh yes, and one more thing. The meadows are well hidden and not signposted, so bring a map. Enjoy your visit.